Thanks for joining us for today's town hall. We're going to just give it another minute before we start to make sure everybody can get in. All right, thanks for joining us today. Nick, do you want to go ahead and kick things off?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Maggie. Thanks to everyone for joining. My name is Nick Sargent, president of SIA. Today, we're concluding our initial series of conversations on inclusion. Over the last 3 town halls, we have heard from a real diverse group of fellow community members regarding their personal experiences in the winter industry. Because leaders and experts on the importance of inclusion in your business and creating inclusion on the slopes. Although this is the last of our series of 4 town halls, we are diligently working on future conversations on inclusion that we look forward to sharing with you. We thank you for joining us along this journey. It's been an important one. And today we're going to talk with fellow industry leaders on how we're working together to create a more inclusive winter industry. And special thanks to our series moderator, Selema Masekela, a winter sports enthusiast, co-founder of Stoked Mentoring and master storyteller. Today's discussion is called Together Creating Change Across the Winter Outdoor Industry. As part of this, we wanted to talk a little bit about how and why this group has come together. We're all relatively new in our roles. We've all been in these roles just for a few years each. But in that time, we've worked together hand in hand and have been really collaborative on important initiatives that affect our industry. We are the front lines for you. We are the voice of the industry. And together we can be more powerful than alone. So as part of this, we deemed it a responsibility to the industry and one that we wanted to share with you all. We also wanted to talk about the growth of the industry. Our industry, as we know, is not getting larger, it's getting a touch smaller. We feel that through great conversation, a lot of hard work, and opening those doors and reducing the boundaries, we have nothing but upside. And as a wonderful sport that we all live with and love to participate, we have to be more open to be more inclusive. So that's part of this journey. The other part is that we have to be working, as I mentioned, in a more collaborative effort. We're conversing more about other areas of climate participation and so on. And this part of DEI and diversity and inclusion is so important to this industry. So I thank you for coming along with us on this journey, but I also want to thank my fellow leadership of the industry for their openness and willingness to help move this important initiative along. With that, I'm thrilled to announce the counterparts that are going to join me today. Kelly Pawlak, President and CEO of NSAA, Dr. Gerilyn Davis, Chief Inclusion Officer of Inclusion on the Slopes, Nick Herrin, CEO of PSIA, Meegan, Executive Director, National Ski Patrol, Constance Beverley, CEO of Sherwinter, and myself, Nick Sargent. The town hall will be a conversation between our panelists. We encourage you to submit questions using the Q&A tools at the bottom of your screen. We'll try to answer them at the end if time permits. So at this point, I want to turn it over to Selema, who's going to walk us through this journey. Mute. You're muted.
Way to start off the last one like a superhero, Selema. Really kick it off with a
$1.
Thank you, Nick. And I'm really, really happy to have you sticking around and to be a part of this discussion. You've been such a great leader through this journey, and it's made these last few conversations exciting And, the manner in which people have responded, and even today where we have one of the biggest groups that have showed up to be in the room with us, really speaks to what these conversations have been. And I am excited to be with all of you on this panel. I think one of my favorite things about this panel in particular is it really speaks to leadership and what people who have been in their industries and passionate about their industries for a while can do with new leadership in their new positions once they're given the keys to take action. And I mean, it's in our we could have easily recorded our practice session for this and just put it up because the passion that everyone has in their spaces and why they are doing this is really exciting. So I'd like to go around the room and really speak to that and get a sense as to what people do, sort of their positions and jobs, and why they have chosen to make this particular discussion of diversity and inclusion a hallmark of their position in this leadership. And I'm just going to go round robin and start with Meegan.
Okay, thanks, Selema. And thanks, Nick and SIA, for having this conversation. It's a big one. And as Executive Director of NSP, looking at who we are as an organization, we've been around for 82 years, is really important to us. We talk a lot about our history and our legacy and all the work we've put into where we are. At the same time, I think it's really important for us to be talking about not only being proud of what we've done, but how are we looking toward the future. And I like to talk a lot about how we're perhaps maybe even looking at is leveraging our history, looking at how we remain sustainable, competitive, viable within the industry. And I think that looking at things like growth and inclusion have to go along with that conversation. We have a fairly on the older side of the spectrum, median age of our membership in mid-50s. And so we're looking at how we can include younger folks, as well as people from all different aspects from where we've traditionally pulled from in terms of recruitment. And so particularly in a time of COVID, I think with things changing, looking at how we remain part of this industry and have a seat at the table and continue to contribute to areas in the growth of the industry is by definition what we have to be thinking about if we're going to remain solvent.
Thank you, Meegan. Kelly? Hi and welcome. My old friend, who we are probably old friends from years ago at Mount Snow, we decided.
Yeah, absolutely. We decided that we probably had coffee over an X Games event or something. So good to see you again.
You might have screamed, "You can't park there. You cannot park there.
You get out of that spot." I was the person that threw themselves on your car. Sorry. Anyway, my name's Kelly Pawlak, and I'm the president of National Skiers Association. I used to work at Mount Snow, including the parking lot. So why? Well, we've been talking about this for a long time. And, if you just look at the data points, as the US population diversifies, if we don't on our ski slopes, we're going to run out of skiers and riders. So that's why the conversation's been going on for a while. And I think the conversation has really shifted to barriers in the last few years, the barriers to entry, whether it be proximity, it's too cold, it's too expensive, it's too dangerous. And for me personally, just in the last few months, everything that we're seeing, that was just the spotlight, the whack aside the face I needed to be like, you're the president of NSAA. Do something. So we're starting within, really talking about this within the NSAA team. There's only 13 of us. We've got a little small group that's doing a lot of the work, but our goal, and we'll talk about it a little later, but our goal is really to provide the resources and education to our members so we can ultimately diversify those slopes and welcome more people to take up our great sports.
Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome.
Hi, Constance. I'm going ladies first. I'm being very traditional today. We go back to our Stoke days, and you've been in this work for a while. So I give you the floor.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so, Share Winter has been around essentially since 2012. It used to be the National Winter Sports Education Foundation. Rebrand for clarity, Share Winter, because we want to share this sport with as many people as possible. And we really focus on providing funding and resources for people traditionally denied access. That concept of access is really key. And we've looked to innovative solutions and working within the industry to work on those problems that have been general participation problems, but in light of the conversations we're educating ourselves to have now, are really rooted in some practices throughout the country that have created barriers. I came to this work very roundabout. I actually found Stoke mentoring while I was an attorney. I was a Wall Street attorney, but my pro bono focus was on fair housing, equitable access, immigration issues, political asylum, all of these other things. So I became very aware of the legal, systemic, and just overall institutional barriers that created exclusion rather than inclusion. So in this particular space, it's finding out how to counteract those practices with the help of this team and other really powerful partners in the industry to address those things and reroute those systems to be more inclusive.
Reroute the systems.
Yeah.
Throw that one up on the board, please. Reroute the systems.
Reroute those systems.
Yeah, that's perfect. And it's a nice segue to someone who reroutes systems for a living in the one and only Dr. Gerilyn Davis.
Thank you so much, Selema. You're always giving me an outstanding introduction, so I sincerely appreciate it. So with my wheelhouse, as far as being the chief inclusion on the slopes, the research that I uncovered, as well as my 16 years in management, I just uncovered that there was a gap within the industry, particularly when it came to just the barriers and that system component. I mean, there's a lot of layers when it comes to fostering inclusion on the slopes, but primarily we take a very systematic approach. And our intention is for everyone to be open to the ski experience. And part of that is utilizing my SWORD inclusion system that I've developed over several decades of research and practice and engaging with people and using inclusion as the foundation that we build our system upon. Ideally, within the framework of the ski industry, inclusion has not been the framework. And so the intention is to use inclusion as that framework and to ground it in that way and using a strength-based approach as well as a positive psychology approach. So once again, emphasizing that inclusion includes you too. And so I think it makes it fun, it makes it enjoyable, but yet we're still unpacking some of those layers. But it's important to ground individuals in that ability to do that work. And so I'm excited about this component of inclusion on the slopes, and particularly I'm excited about this panel and everyone coming together to create that change.
Yeah, I love the collaboration vibes, and what you describe almost sounds like retrofitting a building that has been sturdy up until now, but you realize like it might not withstand an earthquake. It doesn't require tearing it down, but retrofitting it and making it stronger so that when it does encounter these new challenges or quote unquote barriers, it realizes like, oh, we have this, we are built to do this. Nick.
Herrin.
I was just saying,
Well,
Nick.
sure there for a second.
Nick Herrin, sir.
Making sure I didn't talk out of turn, but
no worries.
Thanks, Selema. I think the biggest thing, and I love the work that I've been doing with Dr. Davis and this entire team to really look at that word inclusion, because when I took this job 4 years ago, I actually pulled out a letter that I got from a member. And one thing that I like to think about PSIA-AASI is we are a really strong community that is centered around education. And as all of you know, and I think many people on this call is, we are the gateway to welcoming people to the sport. Our snow sports instructors, they have such an impact on the people that they teach. And that is why we have to infuse inclusion into everything we do, into education. And it's part of our educational model that we have to focus on. And, you know, I pulled this letter out because it really opened my eyes, because I have to tell you, 4 years ago, I didn't really know how to tackle it. And it really resonates with me that the only way to tackle this is with a large community and communities with inside communities, and figuring out whether it's regional specific. We have unique things just at the simple core of disciplines. I think, Selema, you'll know snowboarding and alpine have not naturally come together. You know, that was a struggle in our organization, and really bringing it back to understand, how do we infuse this into our educational systems? How does that make you better instructors? In the end, making a more welcoming educator and welcoming enthusiasts of snow sports. That's naturally going to create that success that we're trying to build by changing that culture with the individuals who are teaching. We have to make that a core principle of education. So this letter, I pull it out every once in a while because it really just talks about imagery. And it was so much more than just imagery. Yes, imagery in the snow sports industry is an issue, but I knew that that doesn't just fix things, right? If we just slap up pictures and say, okay, we won, you know, those are short-term goals. And I think what Dr. Davis is really bringing to the table for me to open my eyes and this organization to open our eyes is, this is a long-term process. Change takes time, but you have to have many people involved in it. And the deeper we go into our educational models and infuse inclusion into our educational models, I think the more successful we're going to be.
Hmm. And one of those things, I mean, in that realization of like, okay, this is a long-term goal. And I think that this conversation really is going to help us focus on is that this isn't something that you have to be doing alone, where you're sitting there in a room by yourself thinking like, okay, everyone's saying this is the thing I'm supposed to do. I don't know what to do. I don't even know how to get other people to buy into this. And Nick Sargent, you know, this is a real opportunity for this community, which takes such pride in being a community, to really engage with each other, you know, find resources that other folks and peers are using, et cetera, share resources, and make this a collective goal as opposed to what I think sometimes people are used to doing, which is being competitive from a brand standpoint and sort of like patting each other on the back from afar.
Oh, absolutely. You know, and we've made a conscious effort to take the learnings that we have created, not only within inclusion, but other aspects of the winter sport business, and share those with our leaders across channel here. And you know, one of the things when we started thinking about inclusion, and we were thinking about this well over, you know, a couple of years ago, but really started to put the rubber to the road about 6 to 8 months ago. And as you can imagine, this heavy-handed male white driven industry for so long, as Nick said, it's really hard to get everyone on board so quickly. But we had to take a position, and we wanted to share this, and we wanted to have a common goal. We wanted to have a common language, and we wanted to share the learnings across the board. Dr. Davis asked me the other day, she's like, you should look up the word inclusion, get familiar with the meaning of inclusion. So obviously I did. And you know, and it states the action or state of including or of being included within a group or structure. I'm tasked with helping grow the winter sport business. I can't do that if our hands are going to be tied. And fortunately, as I said, you know, we have a responsibility to the industry to look at all corners, all walks of life, and really open our doors, open our arms, and share this amazing space that we call a life, a lifestyle, passion-driven, whatever adjective you have to push that, we're doing it, and we're not going to do it alone.
Dr. Davis, that word, well, that it's such a cool story that Nick tells there when you posing that question to him. We heard Kelly at the beginning talk about barriers, and a lot of times people want to make all these big barriers that seem insurmountable or they're unfamiliar with the thing that keeps them from doing the work. But in this instance, you say to Nick, like, let's narrow it down to yourself and you spending some time looking up a word and conjuring up what that means and feels to you. Why is it's so important that people really start with making this personal in order to go outwards and affect others?
Well, I think the reason why it's so important to make it personal is because inclusion is every day. I mean, you experience it whether you want to or not, undeniably so, as you embark on your day. And part of it is really understanding the intricacies that you can create inclusion every single day. I mean, one of the things that prompted me to state that question to Nick was that we participate in think, feel, act cycles. And each person is assigned to thinking of inclusion every day, feeling inclusion every day, and acting on inclusion every day. So it makes it less daunting. And also too, it allows you to be able to take this massive topic and divvy it down into your day-to-day. But then also too, you celebrate those wins and you're able to celebrate your own progress. And also too, considering we're using a strength-based approach, it allows us to be able to leverage what we're already doing well and propel us forward into the future. And so just to give a little background, everyone that's on the call is actually going through my SWORD inclusion system as far as a consulting offering. And what I've seen just in this short amount of time that we've started this process has been astounding. And for me, I've even mentioned this on the call. I'm like, this is going to be a juicy consulting session because there's so much talent, there's so much passion, there's so much zeal, and now we can use it to really grow the industry and create inclusion and make people feel welcome. So I'm really excited about that progress.
Constance, for someone like yourself who has been aware and been in the work and looks at this from a real societal level, that these are just the situations here in this industry just mimic the bigger picture. What are those things that you're continuing to learn in how you can improve in this work?
I think that was to me because you cut out there, but I was like, I think that's me. Actually, the biggest thing for me is trying to figure out how to speak to others so that it does become personal. For me, it's so second nature, and it's so, I go on a full justice bend, and sometimes go straight lawyer, litigator. I want to give you the facts. I want to tell you that injustice is happening. I want you to march in the streets and demand racial equity right now. And that's divisive, in all honesty. You know, for someone who's learning these things for the first time, because we're all, like, none of us are immune to the way that we've been educated in this country and what we've learned and the communities and what's been fed to us. So that approach is something that it just doesn't work in this narrative, and it does a disservice to my work and to the communities that I try to be an advocate for. While I understand the frustration and anger that they experience. So this inclusive framework and reframing the micro actions and every little thing, it changes my language and my approach to it and helps me to understand where other people are coming from so that I don't chase off an ally, so that I don't underrepresent what's happening in the macro during a micro session that could really cause the whole movement to lose ground. And it's hard because it's contrary to my nature. And as an advocate, you know, sometimes I feel like, does this mean I'm like less punk rock now? Like I'm not like a champion for the cause. But what it is I've been provided with tools that allow me to be a better advocate for the movement, a better listener. And, you know, that's something that I know a lot of people who've been doing this work for a long time. They're like, I don't need this training. I've done this. I've been doing this for 10 years, but you can always learn better ways to, you know, figure out how to reroute the system. I used to say dismantle, but now it really is reroute. There's things that we can do within what exists to make it better and inclusive for everyone. And that's been very, very helpful.
That's really interesting is, you know, changing approach, being open to listening and understanding the perspectives of where others come from. I know that I myself, you know, even in looking at friends across the landscape who might post or say something on social media that is wildly uninformed, my first instinct is to want to bark on people, just because my patience in dealing with racism and ignorance wears thin after 48 years on this planet. But I would say in the last couple months, I've been actually giving people a call and asking questions, and I've been shocked at how much people feel like a lot of times they have to adopt a position just to adopt a position. But it doesn't come with any information, and that they don't even really have a feeling or a passion about it. And they really just want to have a conversation and learn. And when you're trying to get, when you're trying to literally like move a mountain, in this case, that is so important. Meegan, on our call, you mentioned something interesting. When I just saw your face go like, oh, he picked me. You talked about sort of the history and the legacy of ski instruction, excuse me, of ski safety. And when you just looking at the images of what that looks like, how you find yourself in an interesting position in reframing what that can look like and feel like, while still honoring the history and legacy, but not saying that that's the definition of what it is today.
Yeah, I think my face was also, so much I want to respond to what Constance said, which is—
Oh, just jump in. Just say, Sal, shut up.
Which is related to your question. It's all together. I think that there are a few things. So one is in relation to what Constance was saying, which again does relate to your question. I think what's so interesting about this group, we've learned in our own training that we're doing with Dr. Davis, that we're all actually very different people, but we all have like one or two things that overlap with each other. And I think that's actually really exciting because we can bring some diversity just within our own thoughts to this conversation. And even looking at the structure of Constance's organization, Share Winter, it's her and a few other staff people who help her at times. And Nick and I both have over 30,000 members in our organization, and we've been around for decades. And so there is this nimbleness and flexibility that varies across the spectrum, I think, for all of us in terms of being able to affect change and have that conversation. And I think, related to your question, what's really important to me and important to my members is being very proud of our heritage and being proud of where we come from and what we do. And so not losing that going forward. And so I think that being able to hear the other challenges and thoughts that other organizations are also thinking about, while also being able to nudge us in certain ways that can help us, again, remain competitive, remain viable, are what's important for us. And I think that, even having this kind of conversation for us as an organization is new and is difficult at times because it's not kind of the same way we've always done things, which if you work with me at all, I don't love that phrase because I want you to catch yourself saying and thinking that and think, so why, and should we still be doing that? And so this is, I think, presenting a really interesting opportunity for us to think outside the box as we look forward. So lots of opportunity.
Kelly, what are some of those ways that you've been thinking outside of the box when it comes to collaborating for your organization from the top end all the way down to those who are front facing?
Well, let's see. Well, I think that working with this group, I'd echo what others have said. We're learning about ourselves, but we're also learning about each other. So that is going to enable us to do bigger and better things together. But just being on a call, on a Zoom with Dr. Davis twice a week, for hours together, you're not going to forget one another when there's initiative. I mean, that happens all the time in every industry. You're rolling around, you're doing anything, you're getting that program going, and halfway through you're like, oh, I should have looped in National Ski Patrol. Like, we're linked now. For me personally, this is a really good opportunity because I'm go, 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 go. And it's Dr. Davis, for those few hours a week that we're all together, it's like, slow down and let's really think this through and let's really understand. And I, for one, need that pause time to learn so I can move our organization forward. And I would say out of our organization, and there's so many layers, there's our staff, there's our board. The one I'm most excited about is public facing, and that is inclusion. And we did this survey in the spring. We actually had to cut it short because of the pandemic and people stopped taking it. But we were interested in Generation Z, you know, like the college and younger crowd, and why they aren't skiing as much as the generation before them. And especially the college crowd were really taking the survey, and we had a good sample size. And one of the things they said is that I don't see people that look like me. I don't feel comfortable there. So, you know, add that to it's too cold, it's too dangerous, it's too expensive. And I'm really looking forward to digging into that. And the way that we're going to do that is through our growth committee. At least that's how we're going to start. We have this committee that we work on growing the sport. And there's all different ways and all different little small groups that work on everything from working with core skiers or beginner skiers. And so what we think is that there are opportunity because they'll go back to their skiers. They're already completely passionate group of people. I mean, and just so innovative and creative. And some of the people on this call are part of the growth committee. So they can be the catalyst for change, but really they need the tools. So we're working with a woman, her name is Damaris Price. She's the founder of Working River Leadership, and she's going to provide us with training and guidance for the next year. And then hopefully the growth committee with all of this, you know, kind of the same thing that Dr. Davis is doing for our group, they're going to be able to really put together good, solid plans that we can bring back to the skiers. So I think that's one of the areas I'm really excited for.
Dr. Davis, I see you itching.
Oh no, I'm just affirming.
Okay.
Everything has been great. And I'm like, oh, that's wonderful. So yeah.
It's working. Kelly, someone did ask in the chat if you would be able to send out that survey to participants in the Zoom call.
I could if my computer was working right now. I went to go on and it said that something's wacky. That's why I'm on my iPhone. But what I could do is make it available to SIA, and they're really good at sharing stuff through all of their different ways of communication. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'm going to make that note.
It's exciting, Dr. Davis, to see the way everyone really is talking about being excited about collaboration and putting together committees. Why does that? What is the benefit of essentially just taking the totality of the burden off of self in this subject?
Well, I think the part of the benefit of using a strength-based approach as well as a collaborative approach is that you are able to glean from one another. And so you create this harmony just based upon you having this experience. And once again, the intention behind the SWORD inclusion system is for it to be holistic. So you incorporate your mind, your body, your soul, and your emotions. And part of that soul component is that connection, to understand that we're all interconnected. We can't escape one another, and we need each other. And I keep emphasizing that. It's not a want, we need each other. Because I am not, my strengths are, individualization, intellection, input, futuristic. Those are my strengths. I can literally lose myself in information. And I do geek out all the time. I mean, I spend half of my waking hours doing research. And, but my strength is not, but I'm not an achiever, and not in the context of like achieving in the sense, because to me, learning just makes sense. Yeah, you learn, like that's what you do, but that's not always my wheelhouse. And so for the achievers and the arrangers and the developers and the strategic, I can glean from them as well, and they can glean from each other, but not everyone's going to bring on the intellection, and that's great because I know that I can fulfill that need that's present. And so when you have all these individuals who bring their strengths, and keep in mind, these are things that they're already good at, I just shed light on that you're good at these things, and then you use them. I mean, you create this positive experience, and that in itself is a soul connection. So it just propels you forward and really shifts that dynamic, and the forefront is inclusion to create that impact.
Selema, can I jump in?
Of course.
I want to add to that because I think, Nick and Herrin and a few others have brought this up too, that I think the opportunity, one of the biggest opportunities we all have, in that we have a lot of things in common, but we all have slightly different aspects in what we're bringing to the table. Like Nick said, Herrin again, you know, that his members are the gateway to the sport. So let's focus a ton on how instructors are making folks feel welcome and wanting them to come back to the sport. One of the things that, you know, we're focusing on at NSP is it's not just about growth and inclusion in the ski industry, but also we work on medical training. So we have a whole additional aspect that we're offering folks. You know, do you want to learn about skiing and be involved in that? And do you maybe want to get involved in the medical world and learn something very specific? And so I think there are a lot of opportunities for us to be leveraging the different areas in which we all focus in the industry, and be able to do some good things together, because we all do overlap, but also have specific things that we focus on that can be helpful.
And if I could just build on that, I think one of the interesting things about all of us coming together here, even before this was a town hall type situation, is that I can speak for everyone on this call that we've all come together prior to this, in looking at how we can look at the entirety of the pipeline of a beginner skier into either a lifelong enthusiast or someone that wants a job in the ski industry. And we've really come together on the youth focus. So we fund 45,000 youth across the US. They're at 61 ski areas. They're in 23 states. We look at diversity of economics, gender, race, nationality, et cetera. And when we approached each of these leaders, what we looked at from a systemic plan was that each of these organizations and each of their constituents and their members have an impact on that overall pipeline. And to the extent that for us to do our work, if there's anything broken in that pipeline, if gear isn't manufactured in a way that is accessible to people, if instruction is riddled with microaggression or a non-inclusive spirit, if the ski patrol isn't able to communicate with all the types of people that come to the mountain and make them feel safe, if the ski area is not providing an experience that feels welcoming and community oriented, no matter what I do, it will fail. And the 28 partners that we work with across the country, who in each of their communities is hurdling other barriers to access, meaning people that can take kids who are from non-ski families there, raising money, getting gear, working with retailers, working with mountains. It has to be collaborative in order to generate the community feel that is the hallmark of our industry for a new generation and a new, more diverse community. And this has been in the process for the past over 3 years. I can say that I've spoken to all these people. I met Dr. Davis, you know, at Outdoor Retailer, through an introduction through SIA. And this collaborative spirit is really the only way to tackle, again, each of the different pieces. And so it's been building up to this moment where we do need to change language and educate ourselves more so that we can hear the things that are being said on the ground, so that we can listen to the feedback that we're getting from consumers and from new participants. And I think that's sort of the critical part of this, is that some of the work has been done and now we're going next level with it and figuring it out, but together, because each of this in a silo, like no one can win this in a silo. There's no way. It's literally impossible. So without this type of collaboration, you just can't do it. It's essential.
Nick.
And
Herrin.
I just love what Constance said about collaboration, because that's been a cornerstone of our association the last 4 years, to understand how can we come together. The way we are most powerful is getting more of our members involved. I mean, we would not be where we're at without all of our educators so engaged. And I go back to something that really resonates with me from the last town hall that Linand and Libra mentioned, was this is a business problem. And I feel like PSIA-AASI owes it to the resorts, owes it to our members to truly understand how does inclusion and diversity affect our educational model. I mean, I'm blown away. I've taken a step back, and just in the last 2 or 3 years, we're going through this huge evolution of our curriculum. And it's essentially a learning connection framework that so often people look at snow sports instructors and they say, oh, you just teach how to tip, turn, rotate, and do those types of things. But it's so important in this day and age that there's these people skills and teaching skills. And that emotional intelligence, if you tell someone, hey, you have to change, hey, you have to treat someone this way, it's pretty hard to change the culture, to change human behavior. But if you create it and infuse it into the education, some of our key fundamental statements that are in our people and teaching skills are, how do you manage emotional risk with the guest? Recognize and influence the behavior and motivations and emotions of others. We really have to infuse that emotional intelligence and really look internally as educators so that we're better and more prepared to work with others. I mean, very simply, I can tell you in my career, I don't know if I focused on that. I'm an athlete, right? I was so focused on going fast, tipping and rotating. How much time do we really spend on teaching those soft skills and creating that welcoming environment? One of the fundamentals that have come out of our evolution of redeveloping our curriculum in the last 3 to 4 years is, as an instructor, are you identifying, understanding, and managing your emotional act and your actions? So are you aware of the way in which you're interacting with your guest? And bringing those types of key fundamentals to the forefront in our educational process, that's how we're infusing inclusion into it. And I really have to thank my educational leaders and everyone across the country who has really brought our foundation to where we are today. We just passed these national standards a few months ago, and I don't think I've realized until now and starting to work with this group how much our educational leaders are teaming us up to take it to the next level, right? Take it further than just looking at different disciplines, cross country, snowboard, skiing, but ethnicities. How do we take it further and connect with more people? And if we ingrain it, going back to Leanne and Libra, into our business model, that's where we're going to truly make change, I think.
Yeah, that is powerful. I mean, it speaks to what I think we've been talking about for the last month and a half. Is this is about infusing and building this into the culture. I mean, this is already a culture that is very appealing. Like, people want to live like people who practice in this. It looks like, wow, like they just have so much more joy and effervescence, and they're always smiling when they're walking down the street. Like, it's not hard to get people to want to experience that. But if you show up to the mountain and all of these different interactions that you have at some small level go against that, those things start to pile up, including if you fall and bruise something, you need to go down with ski patrol. Like, that interaction can literally make the difference between, like, I don't care how bad I got hurt, I want to come back again because these people took care and took an interest in who I was as a person, as opposed to, like, you're fine, you don't have insurance, you're overreacting, and all. Meegan's just like, do you want me to come and speak?
Never happens, Selema. It never happens.
I'm sorry. I've had both experiences. But the former is what has made a difference, you know, and you go back and you want to go see ski patrol and be like, thank you. You guys are amazing. And then you run into those people, and you're actually, I love being able to feel like I build a relationship with the various different types of people that are at the mountain. And to Constance's point, you said something really interesting about everybody realizing within the totality of the industry that in this situation, it's everyone's just a cog in the wheel as to whether or not this works. And just because you're doing the work by yourself over here, if those people are, or that area is not able to do it, then we're all screwed.
And I mean, like, so exactly what Nick was talking about is something we talk about at NSP too. I mean, patrollers oftentimes do a ton of guest services. You know, people see the red jacket and the white cross and they're like, I have a question. And it might be, where's the bathroom? But, you know, it is an outward facing group of folks. They're not just sitting in the patrol shack waiting for somebody to break their leg. And so, very much to Constance's point, you know, all of us are parts of this, you know, cogs in this wheel. And with even within our own cogs, we have a lot going on. You know, there are a lot of different components to this. And that's why I think, yes, working on this together as a group is so crucial, but also just is 100% necessary. I mean, we can't do any of our work without each other. I mean, we don't even really function as a full organization without ski areas, bringing folks to the area and functioning as they do. We have backcountry patrols, and we do some stuff outside of the resort boundaries, but in general, we all depend on each other by definition. So I think it's exciting, and the fact that we all sort of realize that we've been in our roles for around the same amount of time is really exciting, and a really cool opportunity for us to think about that kind of at the same level, I guess.
When you think about access, we've talked about it a few times, the industry realizing that it's their responsibility to bring the mountain to the people and to these communities, as opposed to like figuring out how to get them to you. Is there anything that in this work that some of you are learning about how we can continue to do better to collectively bring this experience to different communities?
I'll just jump in. This is kind of a cultural thing. We've been always a kind of a siloed membership. I think in order to get access to our education, you've always had to be a member or sign up. And as we all know, 50% of people who take snow sports lessons, who engage in the sport, take snow sports lessons. So there's 50% of the people out there that do not take lessons, that may not see the exceptional educators out on the hill. And with PSIA-AASI, we have to find ways to engage everyone so they love it, whether they're independent learners, whether they want to go online and look at YouTube. And we've been starting with grassroots initiatives to creating different videos, quick videos that we put on YouTube, that we share with Constance, that we built kids report cards specifically for Constance volunteers. We have to make our educational material accessible to everyone and anyone. That's how you're going to get people engaged. And I think we're just scratching the surface of it right now, but I like to think we're giving it a good try right now, but I think we can go even further with this, of looking at how to we have to make it easy to access education. We have to make it easy to engage in the sport. And whether that's snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, whatever is closest to you, you have to engage that way. It might just be, I know this sounds funny, but it might just be tubing to start, right? It might just be sledding on the side of the hill. You never know where that's going to go, but we have to welcome that. We can't tease it because the only time you've ever engaged in snow sports is tubing, right?
I'm starting a large bulk of my family out on tubing because none of them have decided. I'm like, we're going to start with tubing. They're like, I'm not going down the mountain. So just to chime in, yes, that's a good, healthy start.
I mean, who was that?
It was me. Go right ahead.
I was just going to say, in all of my years of going to local mountains, right? If I drive to Snow Summit, if I drive to Big Bear, etc., on that drive up on a good winter, on the way to the actual resort, I am going to encounter tons of Black and brown people, families, doing everything they can to have a makeshift experience. They might be building their own little sled or tubing areas, or go to a place that is specifically for tubing. But you will see people who are passionately, excitedly curious about the outdoors, and this experience is a big deal for the family. And those people are there every week, and especially on the weekends. The side of the road lit up. And it's always dawned on me, and you can see it in most mountain areas. I'm like, why isn't anybody figuring out how to get these people, or how do we move them, or help them see that there is access also further up the mountain?
Yeah.
So it's an important point, Selema, just to jump in here and mirror what Nick Herrin said. We have to celebrate the other categories: snow running, snowshoeing, sledding, tubing, fat tire biking, making a snowman, going out for a walk. That person is going to get the shoes, the jacket, the scarf, the hat, the mittens, all the accessories that are going to equal one day going out on a snowboard or going out on a pair of skis. It's okay to get outside. I think we've seen that with what COVID provided us in March. There was a huge demand of people that just wanted to get outside and really express themselves in whatever category. We have to embrace that. We have to remove this exclusive space that we think we live in and be inclusive. And going back to, just to echo a little bit about what Nick was saying, we need to market to these people. We need to market to different groups. We need to market to people of color. It can't just be the white guy going off a cliff on a board or a ski. You know, it's family, it's color, it's fun, it's outdoor. All of these things are just starting points, but then we have to deliver and we have to live it, promote it, and be it.
And there has to be resources allocated to create equity where there is none. And there does have to be an infusion of resources. And that's what we do. We focus on youth because honestly, I think there's some amazing statistics, SIA and NSAA of statistics about diversity, why people aren't coming to the mountains. A lot of it has to do with cost, distance. I don't have anyone to go with. I don't like the cold. All things that are mirrored in how we market to who we perceive our consumer is. And then we overlook where kicking down a small barrier like getting a public bus could actually increase access significantly. So what we've been able to see is, you know, I think I have the best job in the world. You can all fight me, but my job rocks. and I get to work with communities who are usually overlooked, right? The ones that say, you know, you're not my target consumer. I wasn't the target consumer as a kid. And I like to use this quote, I've spent more money on snowboarding than I did on law school. And if you looked at who I was when I was 8 years old, you would have overlooked me. Like this entire industry would have said there's no ROI in that kid. And I think that that's where we've really sort of messed up, is that we have a perception of who a skier is, where they come from, how they get there, how they fall in love with the snow, who their community is. And you know, that misstep and those things, like I hear things like, well, Black people just don't like skiing. I beg to differ. If you have met many people who there's, you know, the National Brotherhood of Skiers, there are Black ski instructors, there are Black like ski patrollers, Hispanic, Asian, like people love this. You put people on the snow, they fall in love with it if they have a positive experience. And what we've seen in communities that have been traditionally denied access is exactly what you were seeing, Selema. It's people figuring out how to get kids on sleds, and then, okay, can we get on a bus? We have grassroots organizations across the country figuring out how to give kids access. You know, we're currently funding 28, there's more. And if those people are listening, apply for a grant. We have money, it is for you. But, you know, a lot of that is the logistics and working with the mountains, with instructors, figuring out what we're hearing on the ground is nobody looks like me. Well, can we find a ski instructor of color? We have that in, you know, the Shred Foundation, one of the organizations that we work with that's up in Newburgh, New York. They were working with Wyndham Mountain. We've got junior instructors coming through. Like it's an amazing program, but someone had to say, we want to do this. We need a junior instructor program. The mountain was bought in. You know, they got resources from us. They figured out ways in their community. It's a multi-step process. But one of the things that I would say is we piloted a program in Flint, Michigan this year, right? Like the last thing the kids of Flint, Michigan are thinking about is going skiing. And that's a greater justice conversation I'd love to have with anyone who wants to talk about it someday, but not today. But, you know, we thought, all right, Michigan Snowsports Industries Association wanted to do something. I called the YMCA of Flint. I said, if we were able to get a bus and if we could get Mount Holly to give you a discount and if we paid for the tickets, would kids want to go skiing? 40 kids, 24 hours, maxed out that program, never been on skis, loved it. But those were kids that no one was going to market to those kids. No one was going to include them. They were not, and even on this note, because people say this to us all the time, is of all the things the kids of Flint, Michigan are worrying about, why would you focus on skiing? Well, because people deserve the same joy and happiness and amazing life transformative experiences, no matter what their situation is. And when you make it accessible, it becomes a part of their life. It doesn't matter if it's supposed to be luxurious. That's a perception thing. The, you know, average skier is white, male, upper middle class or higher, usually high educated, makes more money than the average person in the United States. That's the demographic we've marketed to, but it's not the only demographic that wants to ski at all. And I have 45,000 kids that prove it. So I think it's just a change of perception and then coming together like this group has to kick down those barriers with resources they already have. We have everything we need. We just need to share it better.
Yeah, just jumping in on the conversation, Nick Sargent and Constance mentioned marketing, and we've talked a lot about that. You just can't keep going and marketing to the same people and expect different results. So one of the things that I think is really cool for our growth committee, the work that we're doing, is our trainer, instead of putting together the typical panel that you might think of for a diversity conversation, she's helping us with folks in the marketing field that market to people of color. And I think that's one of the problems that ski area operators have, you know, being one, and not that I was a great marketing person, but you don't know where to start. So we really have to start giving people tools if we expect some different outcomes. And so I'm excited to see how that panel goes, to see if any of the ski areas take those panelists up and really start exploring marketing to a different group of people that we have traditionally marketed to.
Nick Sargent, you're muted, buddy.
I'm unmuting. I guess we owe each other $1. SIA's platform of Snowbound is our consumer platform, and that is designed specifically to get new people into our sport and welcome them to come and just explore what winter is about in a city environment, not on a mountain. We're bringing the activities to them and giving them the opportunity to make those choices, and most importantly, have those choices. And this is a new platform for us. We're launching a digital platform in October, and then due to COVID, we won't be hosting the events this fall, but we'll be back next fall. But again, you know, we're looking for new ways, and to Kelly's point, you know, we have to be marketing towards a new audience and a different audience, and making it very, very achievable.
Yeah.
Can I jump in really quickly? I know we're getting close to time.
All day.
Oh,
Go.
great. I think, you know, one of the things that we're looking at is low-hanging fruit. I mean, just even make your collateral materials and your marketing products appeal to people of color. I mean, have them in your photos. I mean, like somebody said on this call, there are Black people who patrol. I mean, so let's document that. So, you know, so just even starting there with, we've had some photo shoots and some opportunities to just improve our collateral materials, I think helps. And for us, you know, diversity is actually embedded into our strategic plan as an organization. It's a 10-year strategic plan that went into effect last year. And it really revolves around the recruitment and retention piece. And so figuring out exactly, like Kelly said, how to market now to more diverse aspects of communities to bring in folks who are interested in skiing and in the medical piece, I think is a great opportunity for us. And so we're starting to have those conversations as a staff. We have bi-weekly diversity meetings to talk about strategies to work on that. And we're just getting going, and we're super excited.
10 years. That's a buy-in right there.
Yeah, commitment.
Dr. Davis, what is the, I mean, that just that hearing her say 10 years, it's just like, when I hear that, I'm just like, yeah, that's the only way this is going to happen. This is not like a 6 month, 12 months, or even 18 months type of situation, because what you're going to be doing, everyone has mentioned so many different ideas and things that they're implementing right now, but guaranteed, if we all come back together a year and a half from now, I bet Nick Herrin, Constance Beverley, Meegan, Kelly, everyone is going to be talking about how they learned from the way they were doing it, and how they're doing it completely in a different direction at this time. And if you have a short eyesight to this thing just being problematic as opposed to building culture, you don't get to that place.
Yeah, most definitely. And understanding that it's building blocks. So every step you take, you're getting closer. But also, too, the beauty of it is that, I mean, growth is never done, right? I mean, we're never done with growing. We're never done with evolving. And so that's what makes it so organic and beautiful when you reflect on each step that you've taken. And that's why it's so important to have a trajectory of where do you see this going? Where do you want to create this impact? And also, too, celebrating those small wins. I think the challenge with taking on inclusion, and sometimes it could be daunting, particularly within this industry, is not knowing where to start. But even starting is starting somewhere. And so exploring that idea and exploring that dynamic of what is shifting the needle really creates lasting change. That's how change happens. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And I don't necessarily know if I would want it to. You know, the journey, there's beauty in the journey. You know, I mean, even when you think about these town halls and where we are now, I mean, there's beauty in that journey. And that's what I believe should be celebrated.
Nick Sargent, I'm going to put you on the spot here, but do you think that there's a future in where SIA is able to, through collaboration, provide a starter kit, a toolkit for its members, industry members, to be like, you don't know what to do, here's where you can begin. These are what the steps look like.
Absolutely. I don't see that as a monumental obstacle. I see it as such a huge opportunity. We're doing that already with the inclusion training we're doing with Dr. Davis in our XCOM. We're going to make that available to our leadership in our members, and really creating the opportunity for those individuals to make the choices that they want to infuse in their own companies and outward to their consumers. So I think there's a huge opportunity. You know, this isn't going to stop. We're not going to walk away at the end of this town hall series and say, okay, we've checked the box on DEI. You know, this is a lifelong mission. Whether it's myself sitting in the seat or the next person, this doesn't ever stop. And if there's one message I want to share to the membership and those that are listening, you know, this is an ongoing initiative. And the best part is it's really easy. This isn't a huge lift. It just takes a willingness and an openness to do it. So I encourage those who want to, are trying, or thinking about it, just take that first step. It's really simple, and it's the gratification that comes with it is amazing.
I think it's also important to keep ourselves accountable. And like Meegan mentioned, you have to bake this into your your results of the organization. I mean, diversity inclusion, you know, the PSIA board has written that is a priority to incorporate into education, and figuring out ways to better connect with guests is key, and not just guests, but peers, and understanding that, you know, one of the first things that's resonated to me, and it's from a conversation with Henry River from the Brotherhood Ski Areas Association, we have to do a better job of connecting with people who want to be taught by, who identify with similar people, right? And so we have to support and make sure everyone has that education, and working with the Brotherhood Ski Areas Association is so key, because people feel comfortable in that environment. And we've had a long conversation of how do we make sure that we get all of the education into so many different avenues. And, you know, that's why we've started to create a task force at the national level for PSIA, because we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know how to connect with all these different groups, and we have to figure out how to do that. I think one thing that just really resonates with me is someone put, not being stupid, how does an average white skier do to be more inclusive and create a more welcoming environment? And I think that's so powerful, because it goes back to self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and investing in education. The more comfortable we are working with each other and different people, the more natural that's going to happen on the snow. And that's what it comes down to, is self-education. And that's what I'm really realizing through this process, and specifically learning through my educational leaders that they're trying to infuse into our certification process through those people skills.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that popped up for me is there's been such an obsession in this industry to get excited about the other low-hanging fruit, which is the consumer who's walking up and has all of the new stuff and just rolled up in the G-Wagon or whatever, and you can start to salivate at the opportunities in which that person is going to infuse capital into the community. But it's one very small piece of the pie that looks big, but it's small. And the bigger part of this conversation, going all the way down to how you're making your hiring choices, which a lot of times people think like, well, if I can just get the best quality, I just need to fill this position. well, do you just need to fill this position, or do you need to fill this position with the best person to be able to execute the totality of the things that we've been talking about here outside of just edges and pointing and making turns? And I think that's what's exciting about this has been exciting about this conversation in the bigger picture, is where we're going to go as this industry really starts to take its optics from here, which it's been traditionally, and go to here. We could go for probably another hour, but everyone has things to do. So I thank you, Nick, Sargent, and NSAA for allowing me to be here for these 4 conversations. This crew of people I look forward to engaging with further down the road. It has really, really, really been a high honor to participate, and I think we're going places.
Thank you. Thanks, Selema. Thanks to the group, and again, just a huge thanks to Selema, and a huge thanks to the guests. I want to thank you for joining us, and as you've heard today, and through all of this and the different stages in this journey, we are all committed to this work, and we're working together and supporting one another to create positive change in a more inclusive winter industry. Just a quick housekeeping: recording of this will be posted tomorrow on SIA's website, snowsports.org. And all of the other town halls are there as well. So please tune in and catch up what you missed, or rehear what you want to see. Thank you very much. Stay healthy and have a great day. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Go on.
Bye.